Hello, hello, good morning. Happy Saturday. I am super excited today. We are going to be setting up our Adobe Illustrator drafting board and so that we can digitally apparel pattern. I know a few people have been wanting to start to set it up, and I've sent them my free little mini course, but sometimes when you do it as a group or when you see it done live, you can get some questions answered as we're going through it and all that stuff. And then after we get our artboard set up, we are going to then draft a fun pattern because I got some great fabric last weekend when my computer died. And to make myself feel better, I went to the fabric store. So we got some fun fabric and we're going to draft in Adobe Illustrator once it is set up. So hello, I am Christina Hadley-Dyke and I love to digitally apparel pattern in Adobe Illustrator. And it is something that gives me a spark of creativity, I guess, when I find that fabric and figure out the pattern that I want to create. So we're going to switch my screen over. Let's share my screen here on YouTube and Facebook. Maybe, there we go. And we are going to set up Adobe Illustrator. So to set it up, we're just going to start by creating an artboard that I like to go pretty wide on my artboards. Sometimes I like to go like the width of my fabric. So if you know you're going to be commonly drafting on 60 wide inch fabric, having that 60 wide inch artboard can help determine how long your patterns will need to be. So I'm going to start with a 72 and a 30-inch height. The other thing I want to make sure this is in inches. If it's in pixels or in other things, then you're going to have to go in and change it later, which is not a problem. I'll show you how you can do that. But I always find that if you can start it out in inches to set up, it's going to make it a lot easier. So we're going to create. There we go. So that's the start of it. The next thing we're going to do is we want to get all the tools that we want on both the right hand and left hand side of the board. So we're going to pull those up and we're going to start working on those. So, before we go that, we actually want to make sure that we can always get back to this workspace. So up here, you'll see the rectangle with the small little bar in it. You can see I have a few different ones, but we're going to go down to new workspace and we're going to create a new workspace. Pattern drafting, October 22. Okay. So now I have that new workspace started. Now it's not going to edit one of my other workspaces because you have all these other workspaces that you can always flip between that are like good base workspaces, but you always want to make sure that you can flip back to the workspace of the pattern drafting. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off of here because I'm actually going to create yet another new toolbar. So we're going to create a new toolbar. And we're going to do drafting tools, October 22. Okay. And then we're going to start adding in our tools. And I'm actually going to go with the list. And when I'm adding in these tools, I like to make sure that I'm actually adding them in not on top of each other. So we're definitely going to want the selection tool. So I'm going to drag and drop, and then the direct select. And when you drop it, you want to make sure that it's not highlighted. You see when I have it hovered over, it's highlighted. That means they're going to be into one smaller one, and you'd have to do like a click out. But I just like to make sure that they are stacked. Then we're going to grab the pen tool, the add anchor, minus anchor, and anchor point. Then we want the line, the rectangle, keep scrolling down, join tool. This tool, I almost always use the key commands for the join tool. But you know, everybody has, I'm trying to learn how to use it. I actually am really enjoying it, but I don't use it as much. So we want then the type tool, gradient, rotate, reflect, where is it? Keep going, measure tool, there we go. Eyedropper is good. Not eraser, scissors. And that will get you moving around each one of those and zoom. Then at the bottom, we also want to click on the, so that we can change the color of our pattern lines, or if we want to fill in our pattern to when we're making the how you build the pattern instructions. That one and the gradient. There we go. So I'm going to X my original pattern, and I'm going to pull this one up until it highlights blue over there, and that's going to hold it onto that side of the toolbar. Now, also on YouTube, I have a deep dive into a lot of these tools that kind of shows you how each of them work with Adobe Illustrator, as well as just the quick key links that they have to it. I'll also link in the description below afterwards the key commands, so that if you want to start digitally apparel patterning in Adobe Illustrator, you can grab these key commands and start actually patterning yourself. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our right side. Yes, right side of the board, all the ones that we want over on this side of the board. Now, I'm going to guess that most of mine are actually already up there because I was on a pattern drafting board before I started. But we're going to go through and talk about which ones we definitely want seen. So the ones, we're going to go up to this window, and that's how we're going to get them. So we definitely want the align, and it's going to pop out. Sometimes it'll pop up, like when you say you want that one, it'll pop up on the screen just like this. And all you have to do is grab it and get it to pop in over on that side. And again, if you highlight it, because it was with the transformation, if you highlight it and the square is highlighted, it's going to make it a double window basically. Whereas if you pull it out and just have it highlighted, it's going to then be its own separate section. You'll figure out once the tools you use all the time, once you really get into patterning it, which way you like them, and every way is a little bit different, and everybody likes it set up just a little bit differently. And again, that's a little bit more of like the plug and play. You have to kind of play with it to see what you like and what you don't like. So then we also want to get our brushes. Then we want document info. So this is a lot of times how we're going to use to measure everything. So it's really important to have that document info because we measure stuff on that all the time. And we also want just basic info. Layers. Layers is also essential when you are patterning, because once you have different layers, you can lock a lower layer and trace out your patterns once they're done. Then we want Pathfinder up as well. Stroke. And there's a few more down below here. We want transparency. And I think that's all of them. Let me double check oh no, there's one more. Double check that list. We also want the transform that we already had. So that is the basic setup of Adobe Illustrator. You now have your tools on your left-hand board. You have your tools on your right-hand board. And then the last thing, there's a few more things, I guess. The last thing that we can do is right when we first started, we set it up in inches. If you had set it up in something other than inches, you can go into your preferences and go into the units and make sure that all of these are set into inches. Or if you pattern in millimeters or centimeters, you are welcome to change it to that, and then you will be able to pattern that way as well. The other thing that I like to also check on is the guides and grids. So right now, this is when you pop up the grid, it'll show you your grids. And right now I have my guideline every inch and subdivisions every inch, which I want it to actually be every 1/8 of an inch. So when you're patterning 1/8 of an inch. And that's all we need to do in there. And then view. The last thing that I also really like to do is there we can show the grid. And this grid is actually in white right now. For when I was doing a projector file, it's easier to have it show up in white. So you can actually go right back up into guides and grids and change that to black or whatever color you want to have it on your paper. The last one that I always like is the rulers. Oh, I just hid them. We actually want them. Show rulers. So the rulers, especially when you're on a huge blank page like this, and if your grid is hidden, sometimes you don't quite know how close or far away you are, because you can zoom in and it doesn't actually change much on the screen. But I can see up here, it's like that's 9/16 of an inch and that's 5/8. So I'm like super close. And it just helps kind of give you a relatively feel on where you are in the paper, because when you're hand drafting, you can easily see where you are in the paper. But if you're trying to like line something up and get your notches like perfectly matched so that when you're sewing it, your notches are great, then you're sometimes like super close and you don't realize it, and you're trying to draft something and you're like, where'd it go? It's like, oh, I'm looking at my piece of paper from basically an inch away. So that is how you set up the Adobe Illustrator. If you have any questions, definitely make sure to drop them down below, and I will try to get them answered as soon as I can. While we are here though, I'm actually going to be now drafting myself a new shirt. So I was just scrolling Pinterest and I saw this shirt and I thought it was super, super cute. So I'm really excited to be drafting this shirt. It's going to have glittery pumpkins all over it. So it's going to be very October themed, and I'm super excited to make it. So I pulled up my basic sloper. So I have in my patterns, I have my basic sloper saved so that I can always go back to it. I save it as a new file and I can quickly start editing this brand new shirt that will be ready to be cut out later today, hopefully. We'll see if I got time for that today. So what we're going to do is, I'm actually going to move my back and that over there. And this is actually a little light, so I'm going to raise up my stroke so that you can more easily see it now on the screen. I hope you guys can see it a little bit better. Hello, Stephanie and Dornell. Ooh, I'm so sorry if that's not how you pronounce your name. You asked if I do use guides or dots. When I'm hand drafting, I actually love dotty paper. So I actually have an entire roll of dotty paper in my room for when I'm hand drafting. But when I'm on the computer, I find the dots kind of throw me off and the grids throw me off on the computer. So when I'm actually drafting, I draft on a blank screen. And then what I do is I sometimes will bring up the screen at the end to make sure all the grains and everything are straight up and down. Because sometimes when you twist, let's get this twisting, it will go in very small increments and you can't always get it right back to zero. So there's ways to actually make that work to get it back to zero. I'm just going to Control Z that. So there we go. So I'm going to start by patterning this. Now this is an asymmetrical design, so I'm going to actually have to pattern on the full on the full. So I'm going to reflect my shirt over to the other side so that I have one front sloper. We're going to zoom in a little bit. And then we're actually going to cut these guys apart and create it so that it is one garment. And let's cut the other side apart, just like that. And then delete. So now it looks like a full garment, but it's actually not yet because it's two pieces that have been cut apart. So what we have to do is we actually have to select Control-Shift-Alt-J to join them. Or if you go over and use your fancy little join tool, it creates a circle, and then you just hover over the anchor points that are there, and it should join it. I have not gotten into the usefulness of actually doing that because I'm just so used to the key commands. That's normally how I work as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab my sleeve, because I'm going to be making some marks that I'm probably going to want to have on that sleeve. So take a quick look. That goes shoulder to about midsection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start penning in about what I want it to do. I'm going to go up to the shoulder. And let's change that angle just a little bit. Yeah. Cool. So I think, yeah, I like that. I'm going to do it just like that. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually now going to cut my other piece apart. So let's go ahead and cut. I don't think I grabbed it. I did. Okay. Then we're going to, nope, go away. Just got a guide and I want it to go away. And I can't grab it again. Gotta love that. Well, we're just going to move slightly down. I'll get it to go away in a minute. But I'm gonna grab that guy and cut that other. And then I'm also going to actually cut right at the arm's eye as well. That way I can then measure this line and know where I'm going to go up to on my sleeve. So then we're going to go up into the document info, into objects, and we have it, it's at 6.02. So we're going to cut that. We're going to do a guesstimation this first time, 5.19. So we're going to do another one. Boop. 5.9. So now I'm going to zoom way in because I'm real close. I'm going to X and I'm going to Control, cut. 6.4, too far. Undo, cut. I was right on it, not quite. 6.1, perfect, there we go. So that's going to give me that notch of where I'm going to be cutting it in the front. So now that I have that front basically made, I'm going to kind of do the same on the back. And oh, I started with the wrong side. That's okay. We're going to reflect this pattern as well. Alt right on that line. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to cut the pattern apart. Did I get it? I did. So now let's do the other side. Cut and delete. And then we're going to rejoin. And that is smooth. Okay, smooth. There we go. Then what I'm going to not do that, I want to hit V and I'm going to go and make sure it is trued. So I'm going to line up my shoulder seam and I'm going to rotate on that point just like so. So that I can then, let's fix that. Need to rotate it back just a smidge. Go. But then we can give myself a guideline so that I know that my shoulder seams will match up, because you want to make sure that it is matching up as best you can so that you're not, when you're actually cutting it out and printing it out, you're not having that problem with it not quite lining up and then you're having to adjust on the fly when the fabric's already cut. Not so much fun. So then what we're going to do is I'm going to make sure to grab that notch point and shift the center back as well. I'm going to drag it over here and we're going to rotate it back to roughly straight up and down. And I'm a little zoomed in for that. So let's zoom out for ease. There we go. And we're going to do the same type of thing. So I'm going to actually pen in the back because I'm going to have the back mimic the front. just like so. I don't think I was quite on there. So if you don't actually hit all your lines perfectly, that's okay. You can always go back in and adjust. And Control Z is your friend. The amount of times I use Control Z while I'm patterning is a lot. I love it. Then we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to cut this guy. Oh, I have the wrong pattern. I want that one. I'm going to cut him here, the intersect, and at the intersect. See, okay, I got him away as well. Cool. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to cut at the armpit. And into our documents info, we're at 5.79. So it's pretty close to being the same. And then we're going to cut there, and then we have to highlight that way. 5.5. So we're going to go just a little bit further. 5.62. What did I say it was? 5.79. We're going to go in just a little bit. And we're just going to inch it along. 8.3, 7.2. So I just need to go a little less. 7.8. There we go. Then I'll zoom out. I'm actually going to delete that top part of my sleeve because that's going to now not go over the cap of my my shoulder, but I'm going to have it cut around and then I'm going to lace it up. And unlike, so that with my pattern, the lace kind of ends at the shoulder. So, but it's still helping hold up over there. So I'm just going to I think I'm going to do like a little bit of a dip though, so that I can have just a fun little cute, ooh, that was not in the center. That's okay. We're going to dip and I'm going to pull those handlebars just a little bit. There we go. Now before I go too much further, what you want to make sure to do is you want to make sure that you reattach your entire pattern. So we're going to get our anchor point back up and we're going to start Control J-ing. Control Shift Alt, whoops, J, not H. Don't know what H does. We're going to pull that guy. We can delete him. Corner. And we also did the armpits, don't forget. You can go away. My guide can go away. Awesome. So there is the basics of this pattern. Now, before you actually fully finish it, what you have to do is you want to put on those fine finishing details. So you need to figure out about where your elastic little guidelines are going to go through. You also want to think about how you're actually going to finish it. And I need to lengthen my sleeve. I just saw that I'm still on a short sleeve and I definitely want a 3/4 length sleeve. So we're going to be lengthening that sleeve as well. But what you also want to do is you want to think about the facings, how are you going to finish this garment? And I think I'm going to be finishing with facings everything. So what I'm going to do is then you want to create another pattern that will basically, you'll cut it out and stitch it right on the line, and then you'll be able to flip it to the inside and do another stitch on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can grab that. Can't grab that hole. So if I go A, shift, hit the other side, there we go. Now I have that on top. Now I sometimes actually prefer to do this on another layer so I don't mess with it. So yeah, we're going to Control that. We're going to add a layer, lock a layer, And now we're on it. So that's going to be our facings layer so that we don't mess with stuff. Then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pen around like so. And we're going to fix that. And I'm actually going to start by making this just a little bit bigger. Because what I'm actually thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch it on there, and then when I flip it to the inside, what I'm actually going to add is I think I'm going to cover stitch that edge with the double needles and everything, and then I'll trim off the extras underneath that cover stitch. So I'm going to make that just a little bit wider than it probably needs to be, because I'd rather have a little bit wider. If you don't have a cover stitch machine, you can also use a double needle in your machine, or you could do like a zigzag stitch and that type of stuff. So there is my front facing. Then I'm going to do the same. Got to unlock that layer now. We're going to do the same, oops, for the neck. We're going to both sides of the neck, Control copy, layer, Control paste, bam. Up just a little bit. And we're going to do the same. I'm going to actually move this guy up and out of the way so that I am not hitting him. Just go a little bit. If you hold shift, it will actually keep it on each 45. So sometimes if you're wanting it to be a perfectly symmetrical thing, holding shift when you're doing center fronts is the best way to go. There we go. So there is my neck facing. Now we're going to move to the back. So we're going to shift, get the other side, copy, go to my top layer, paste it. It's in orange. We're good. And we're going to not move it like that. We're going to hit V, the direct select. Why are you not connected down there? That's interesting. We're going to connect that, smooth. I want that as a one piece. And then we're going to do the same, tracing it out. Doop, doop, doop. And if you don't get it like quite on the line, I think you saw me do this on the other side. If you accidentally hit slightly off the line, you can actually just go and with your select, hit it and put it right where you want it to be. And then we're going to grab it, move it out of the way. And grab this guy. A layer, paste, and we're going to pen. Now you will want to make sure that your facings also are pattern matched. Well, not pattern matched, but trued, because that's also not fun to deal with after everything's cut. So I'm actually going to grab that guy. I was totally guesstimating that size. Yeah, so I went a little bit wider on the back than I did on the front. I'll rotate it just a smidge. And we're going to true it up. Boop, just like that. So there we have it. Now I have my, don't do that, hit V. I have my front facing and my back facing, with my back facing for the actual fun cutout, as well as the back facing or the front facing for the fun cutout. The last thing I'm going to do is actually mark where I want these little, where I want the little guides to go. So we're going to take a line. So we have basically an 8.5 line. And we want our last one. What if we put it down? If we do 8, double click, there we go, come on. Shorten it. Information. Now we have a 7. So if we want to divide that 7, let's get out the calculator. So 7 divided by 4 is 1.75. So if we do 1.75 on each of those, so what I'm going to do, is I'm going to draft a 7-inch line at 0. And then I'm going to draft myself another line that is a hash mark. This thickness is somewhat throwing me off, but you definitely need it to see it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to transform this guy. We're going to move it horizontally, 1.75 and 0. We're going to hit OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to transform, move, and we're going to copy it this time. Transform, move, and copy. Then we're going to move it up, rotate it, doot, 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 and go like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and delete that line and highlight the rest of these little guys. Copy, paste, and I'm going to just move it up to the other side. And we're going to rotate. Doot, 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 doot. Let's take a look at that inspiration photo. I might need to move it up just a little bit. It might be too close to the point. Move it up like so. And we're going to move that one. Make sure you grab all of them. So what you can do is you can actually group them so that you never move just part of them. I did not do that there. I like that better. So now we're going to delete that extra line, and we have those notches all set out. Then we're going to move back over to our other guy and paste that line. And we're going to rotate it. Doot, doot, doot. And I think I want to move it up just a smidge like I did for the other one. And we're going to copy paste again. Rotate again. Oh, I don't think I did. Oh, I did. There we go. Awesome. Then I'm going to delete that extra line so it's not throwing me off. And there I have it. Last thing I need to do is actually get the sleeve lengthened a little bit. But that is the basics of it. I'd also probably, if I was giving this pattern to somebody else or creating it, you'd also want to put like a little text on putting your grain lines, as well as the front and back piece, the facing pieces, because this facing piece and this facing piece look eerily similar. But you know, you want to make sure those are labeled so that everybody knows what they're looking at. So we're going to move back over to the sleeve really fast. And we're going to lengthen it. We're going to lengthen it. I don't have any of my measurements right in front of me, but I'm going to guess we're going to go 12 inches. So we're going to go 12 inches down from my armpit. 17.3. Sometimes you'll give me a middle, but not today. That's cool. So we're going to then drop a line. There we go. And I'm going to go 12 at 270. Yeah. I think she also has a little bit of a flare, which could be fun. So I might cut that a little bit. But what we're going to do first is we're just going to grab this. So I'm hitting A, and oh, I have 2 in there. So let's Control Z that. We're going to get that second, those anchor points out of there for a minute, so that when if you just grab A, you can actually grab it and pull it straight down. And if you again hit Shift, it will bump it just so keep it directly down in that line, which is really handy. Let's see here. But I do think it has a little bit of a flare. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to flare it. So we're going to, I'm not going to mess with the top half of it. Okay. Are you cut though? I don't think you are. That is not the one I wanted. There we go. Now we have it. Cool. So I'm going to, actually, I still want that top line, don't I? Should have thought about that. And then we're going to drop another line on this side at 12 at 270, and a line at this side, the same thing. Cool. Then we're actually going to do like a slash and spread, and we're going to expand this out. So we're going to continue to cut this guy apart and cut. Got that. And I'm going to give myself a guideline of 1 inch at 180. And we're going to select, we're going to rotate at that point out 1 inch. Right, and that's going to do that, but we're going to drop it. Boop, boop. Then we're going to cut again. Not that. Got to make sure that when you're cutting the right one, especially when you're trying to cut right at a line. It's wanting to cut the line I created, my guideline, not my actual path. There we go. And now we're going to grab that guy. We're going to, I'm actually going to rotate at this angle this time. Boop, boop. And I left my guide in the wrong spot. That's okay. We're going to move it over 1 inch. I think I want to go a little bit more than 1 inch though. Then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So he's already cut. So you want to make sure you grab them all. And we're going to rotate it down and out. Boop. Then we're going to again cut. Hopefully it will actually cut. Nope. There we go. I'm a little off, but that's okay. And before I move it, I'm actually going to move my guideline over here. And we're going to rotate again out just a smidge. And that'll give me just a little bit of a flare on that. So then what I'm going to do is, since this is kind of all cut up and everything, I'm going to lock this layer and move to my top layer. And I'm going to pen out my new sleeve. So now that we are here, we're going to just start by pen and anchor. And we're going to have to fix that because I started wrong. That's okay. And then we're going to click there, go right and shift, get a nice little curve. Boop. Boop. And like I said, we're going to go back and actually fix this guy because we want a nice curve there. But we are definitely off on a few of our places. So we're going to start with this first one. So we're going to select this guy and we're going to get him. So we're going to pull one anchor all the way in, and the other anchors we're going to get to nicely match up with that line, since we already know that is a good line. There we go. Time to do this side. Pull that guy down, grab that guy, make him a curve, and pull that one in so you have a nice hard stop. There we go. And pull it down and in. This guy needs to come out a little bit. Just like so. And then if I would have actually done all that for the rest of my pattern, you can go and just turn off that bottom layer, and then you have just your sleeve pattern there, as well as any of your other patterns. And let me turn that back on so we can actually see it. I have a new shirt ready to get printed out or projected down and cut out on some fabric. I'm super excited. I should have brought the fabric in so you guys could see it, but definitely check back soon for this shirt's construction. So if you have any questions on how to start digitally apparel patterning, definitely drop them so that we can get chatting and talking, so that we can get you digitally apparel patterning faster. I definitely enjoyed spending the morning with you guys, and I hope to see you again in some of my other videos. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday. Happy patterning!